There was this revolt against roadmaps for a while there.
We had the ultra agile, which, we go like, hey, we have no clue what we're going to do in 2 weeks because we're going to prioritize on the spot then and there.
But we're not building houses, we're building products.
Are there any cases where now, next, later may not be the best framework in your experience?
One of the key things about the now, next, later is that you are prioritizing at the problem level, not at the individual idea level.
Morning, everyone. Hi, Janna. Hi, Jonas. We're meeting to talk about timelines. We're talking about roadmaps. We're talking about product planning and everything that the company wants from you as a head of product. But let's do super quick introductions first. Janna, why don't you go first?
Great. Hey, thanks so much for having me. So hi, everyone. My name is Janna. You might know me as one of the co-founders originally of Mind the Product, which is the big community of product people. And today I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of ProdPad, which is the platform for product management. We make OKR and road mapping and idea management, feedback management tools.
Janna, I just want to start by saying that I both love Mind the Product and also love ProdPad, which I've been an avid user of several times in the last couple of years. So my name is Jonas. I've worked in product in the last 20 years in quite different industries and roles. In the last 10, 12 years in product leadership roles, also spanning beyond product, including marketing and engineering functions as well.
And I'm Christian. I did a lot of product jobs over the years. Jonas and I met way back at Google, and we decided to do this 10-minute product podcast for, telling about all the questions we usually get and saying how we do it basically, and hopefully be useful to people. And Janna, I do remember the events in London where they were very tiny and just a few people around a beer. So for me, this is very nostalgic as well to have this chat with you. And yeah, thanks for all the efforts over the years.
Of course. Hey, and thanks for being involved way back when. And, good to see how, both of our careers have grown over these years.
I wanted to bring this quickly back to my early career as a software engineer, when I remember being asked all the time about timelines and building these 1-year waterfall roadmaps, which never worked out. And I thought there has to be a better way. And in fact, that's how I ended up in product, basically, is to figure out how can I decide what we build and how can we change it? Why is it all fixed? And why is it all, so much? So over the years, everything changed. We had sort of a reaction to this. And so we had the ultra agile, which we go like, hey, we have no clue what we're going to do in 2 weeks because we're going to prioritize on the spot then and there. And of course, as a head of product, this doesn't quite work for companies because they have to line up partnerships, they have to line up marketing, have to line up a lot of things. So, basically, I think the main topic of product, one of the main challenges, is always the tension between you want to be free to change and to adapt to what you learn with customers, to what you learn as you launch. But on the other hand, organizations are pretty big ships, and to change the directions, from 1 week to another is quite difficult. So everybody wants dates from you, right? Mm-hmm. And I think this would be my sort of historical context for that. And you've launched, Janna, the Now, Next, Later roadmap originally, which is great for figuring out what to do and reprioritizing. But you also added dates to it. And so I think we'd love to hear how you do that, basically. How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the beauty of the Now, Next, Later format, is that it thinks about time in these time horizons where the things in the now are right in front of you, and it's a shorter time span, right? This is the stuff that's usually measured in a matter of weeks and is generally more locked down. So, you can generally give something more date specific. And you might not be able to say, whether it's going to be Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, because things go wrong at the last minute. So you probably don't want to promise exactly what hour or day it's going to come out, but you can probably give an idea as to whether it's going to be out in this release or next release, or, whether it's going to come out in this month or the next month, depending on how precise you're able to get with your releases. But then when you're talking about things that are in the next or the later, you're talking about things that are further afield, right? It's like you're standing here, but things are further off in the distance and they're a little bit fuzzy. They're on the horizon. And so, you're talking about things that are months away and you're not committing to dates. And the problem with the old school timeline roadmap is it has this timeline along the top, running along the top, and everything underneath it by the format of this roadmap has a date ascribed to it. And so you're automatically giving due dates and deadlines to everything on that roadmap. And so you're giving the same level of certainty to things that are happening right in front of you as you are to the things that are happening later on in the year. You're having to say what month something is going out in December, what week something's going out in December, when you don't even know how big your team's going to be in December, let alone when you're going to be able to deliver. And no matter what sort of caveat you put on your roadmap, people are going to look at that when November comes and say, hey, you said in January's roadmap that this is going to be out in December. Where's my thing? And the reality is that things change. You needed to be flexible, right? And so what you're saying is, hey, in January, we can see that this is off in the later. It's in this sort of order. We need to do these things first. It's that far away, but we'll figure out what that looks like when we get there. In the meantime, I can tell you what the roadmap looks like right in front of us, right? So springtime looks like we're going to go here, 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 here. And that looks like, this week is this, and the next week is this, and the next step after that is this other thing. So you can give sort of incrementally more precise or less precise ideas about what's going to be done as you move forward in the roadmap. And that's intuitive, right? That makes sense from a human standpoint. If you were standing out somewhere and looking further and further afield, you can imagine to be able to give that level of precision. You're not looking for anything different with your roadmap as well.
That sounds like as well. It's the framework that gives appropriate focus on discovery continuously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how? And what kind of benefits have you seen implementing this in large organizations?
Well, what it allows the team to do is, as you say, it allows them to focus on discovery of the things that are right in front of them while still giving direction as to where they're heading. Because what happened, there was this revolt against roadmaps for a while there. People said, oh, well, my roadmap is dangerous, right? We're showing people what's happening too far out. Therefore, we're not going to have a roadmap. And there's this whole period for a while there where people had no roadmaps. And instead, they would just prioritize what they thought was most important to happen next. And that led to teams having no direction. And so they would just prioritize whatever they thought was going to come up next. And that led to teams not really understanding why they were working on stuff, not really working on the most important problems, just working on whatever the noisiest customers were asking for, or whatever the noisiest stakeholders were asking for. And so the now, next, later gives you the best of both worlds. It allows you to say, well, here's what we have prioritized as the next most important, but we're also prioritizing it based on the big problems. So one of the key things about the now, next, later is that you are prioritizing at the problem level, not at the individual idea level. So everything on the roadmap should be attributed to some sort of problem or opportunity level block, where you're saying, well, this problem goes first, and then this one, and then this one. And then inside those problems, you then break it down into more details. It's very similar to Teresa Torres's opportunity solution tree, where you've got the opportunities and then the potential solutions underneath that. In the now, next, later framework, we call them initiatives and ideas, or problems and solutions, depending on how you want to talk about them. But basically, you are thinking about the problems to solve first, and then the potential solutions. And that way you are outlining the problems to solve, and the team understands where they are now and where they need to be going down the line. And they have eyes on what's most important now and what's important down the line. So if something is far off in the distance, they can see, okay, we know that that's a problem. We are going to get there. We don't need to break it down in lots of detail now, because the problem right in front of us is the one we're going to tackle now. But we'll get to that other problem. We can think about that. We can chew on it a little bit as we get closer. So we can keep our eyes scanning the horizon when we look up from this problem, but let's keep our eyes tackling this problem to make sure we solve this one first.
That
This
sounds
is
good.
yeah, this is greatly formulated. I think it takes me back to my first massive clash that I had with commercial teams, where I was head of product for a product where we had a combination of hardware and software, and we had 2 week sprint cycles for the software. But I was working with joint ventures that were the sales channels, which were used to the old school hardware. And so they'd have a roadmap that was 12-month out in detail, because the release cycle were so slow and long, and no bug fixes, nothing. So we arrived, so I suddenly had this thing that I assumed, that's like, look at this, how much better is this? 2 weeks and you get bug fixes. But actually what ended up doing is I got a ton of abuse every week, because basically they said, wow, so many problems, so many bugs, and we don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. Are you going to fix all these 12,702 issues? I said, well, but we're going to fix the most important stuff every 2 weeks. And I did not manage for 6 months to get ahead of the communication. So did you hear any feedback from teams that are using Now Next Data with dates, and how they communicate towards sales channels, towards towards commercial teams, that they don't have to be understanding software, right? But they have requirements of customers, they have contracts, they have things that they deal with. And is there, did you get any feedback from teams like this and how they use it?
Yeah, so I actually like to see the now, next, later way of thinking as something that works really similar in the way that your commercial teams and your executive teams think and budget their time as well. So think of it this way, like when your commercial teams go and plan their year, they don't plan out and say, well, we are going to close this deal by this particular date. You don't have your, VP of sales saying that, because they don't know, right? What they do know is that they are going to hire and have a team of SDRs and account execs and people running a sales process who are going to try a bunch of things. They're going to pick up phones and send emails and do sales things, sales activities. And they're going to run the sales process. And at the end of the sales process, someone probably is going to buy something by that particular date, right? They don't know who, but someone is going to. And they know that because last quarter, someone did something similar to that, right? It's this tried and proven process that they run every quarter. And every time it works, they can invest in more people doing the same sort of thing, right? And it's this process of experimentation, right? What they call experiments is picking up the phone and sending emails and that sort of thing. It's this proven sales process. But we're not asking for anything different than that. We want to run a series of experiments, but our experiments are, trying out a new feature or taking a feature away or trying some new copy here. And our investment isn't hiring SDRs and account execs. It's bringing in product designers and testers and developers and people to run these experiments. So we want to take an investment in our team and run experiments with a goal of increasing or decreasing or changing some numbers. They want to increase their sales numbers. We want to decrease churn or increase market share, or whatever sort of number we've been set at. But ultimately, we're all sort of set at some particular goal. And if we're basically saying, hey, we want to take an investment from the company, invested in a process by running experiments in order to reach a particular goal, none of us can actually guarantee that like a particular thing is going to work, a particular experiment is going to work. Their salespeople are going to get hung up on. They don't know which experiments are going to work. They just know that if they run enough experiments, someone is going to buy. We also know that some of our experiments are going to fail. We don't know which ones are going to fail. We just know that some of them are going to fail. But we also know that if we run enough experiments and they're well enough designed and we follow a process, then enough of them are going to succeed that the numbers are likely going to go up and to the right and in the right direction. And then we'll have permission to reinvest more money into product development because we follow a process, and we can talk about how we did it last quarter and how we're going to do it again the next quarter. So actually, this whole process of not necessarily saying what it is we're going to deliver but saying, here is the thing that we're going to try to affect, the problems we're going to try to solve, and how long we're going to try to invest in it, is tried and tested by other divisions. We're just repurposing that same sort of mindset for our own work.
But is this approach suitable for are there any cases where now next later is may not be the best framework in your experience? Are there particular types of companies, organizations, and products?
Well, here's where a project mindset does tend to be better, is if you know what it is that you need to build, right? If you have certainty of what it is that you need to build, you're actually just replicating something that's already been done. Then working in an agile way where you do a little bit and then you stop and you check and you iterate on it is actually more wasteful. But if you actually know what it is you need to build, then go at it and go build it, right? Just do the project planning up front. Now, the reality is when you're building software, you almost never know exactly what it is you're going to build, because even by the time you get there and build it, the market may change. Your competitors may have one up to you. The technology may have changed, right? Very few of us building in the software digital product world are building a known safe, yeah, just go build it and it's fine. So actually, in most cases, building in an agile way is a safer way of doing it, even if it is, and it does feel sometimes slower, because you're saying, hey, don't just, spec it all out at once and then design it all out at once and then build it all out all at once and release it all at once, which in some ways does feel like it would be more efficient. Why don't we just, package it all up and then send it all out? There's a reason why that was designed as a way to do things. There's a reason why they do construction work that way. It would be highly inefficient to build a house that in an agile way. But that's because you know what a house is supposed to look like. You don't do that agile. But we're not building houses. We're building products, which for the most part never have an end finish date. They need to live and breathe and grow with a changing, growing, breathing market.
And do you find that the framework can peacefully coexist with other planning frameworks? That could be Nexus or SAFe for some of these big enterprise frameworks that are often used.
Yeah, so I mean, SAFe is a really interesting one. I mean, if you think about what SAFe is, it's really just it's a scaled agile, right? It's a scaled agile framework. I have a love-hate relationship with SAFe, right? What it's really doing is taking agile and making it so that it's applicable to everyone across the business. Now, ideally, agile should be able to be adjusted to each team as they see fit within the context of the team, and so it can be played a little bit looser than that. But if you are going to scale it and make it as regimented as SAFe, then so be it. With now, next, later, it does work with it, right? Because all it's basically saying is ensure that you are working in a lean way. You're not planning your you're not setting things in stone months and months ahead. You're leaving room for flexibility, and that absolutely can be done on an individual team basis and at a larger team basis. In the ProdPad world, we have the ability to manage that on an individual product basis or at multiple product lines or entire portfolio bases. So we have lots of teams who are using SAFe alongside their Now Next Later framework. So
and that's my experience. That's my experience as well. I've been in a large retailer with 4,000 stores, 30,000 people, millions of turnover. So a lot of risk averseness, and the SAFe kind of played itself nicely in that regard to kind of maintain that field control at least.
Yeah.
And then Now Next Later, but within an increment, so a period of time, but you drive a set of KPIs forward. now next later actually was a brilliant tool to organize the work, but within a time period. So it's kind of a case where it existed, but within a larger framework.
Exactly that. And one of the biggest misconceptions about the Now Next Later framework is that it doesn't have dates at all. The big change is that it doesn't have dates at the top, right? It has the time horizons, the now, next, later. And in ProdPad, these can be renamed, right? We've had people rename these to things like, I like the terms doing, discovering, dreaming to describe what's happening in these columns. Sometimes teams rename these to be more date specific because it's a way to wean your teams off their, 4-quarter roadmaps, Q1, Q2, Q3 plus sort of thing. I recommend staying away from terms that are too date specific at the top and instead sticking with things that are more in keeping with the concept of time horizons. But just because you've taken the dates off the top doesn't mean you can't have dates on the specific cards. So if you're in a highly regulated space, if you're in a space that has, or if you're in a company that has strategically important, externally driven milestones or dates or anything like that, then include those. If it's important to communicate this to your team and to other teams and across your team or wherever, put it on your roadmap. But what you're not doing is you're not penalizing yourself by putting dates on everything. I rarely see a company that needs to have dates for every last item that goes on their roadmap. Like due dates for everything that they need to deliver. Sometimes they have due dates for a lot of things they need to deliver because they work in a highly regulated space. They've got one regulation getting thrown at them in this quarter and another one for the next quarter, and they're kind of regimented because the space they're working in is a tough space. I see other companies who are, they've got a deadline every year that they've got to work to because, they work in the academic field and they want to get a dropout for whenever, that kicks off. Cool. But it doesn't mean that you can't be flexible around that. You just need to put in the project planning for that one drop or for those quarterly drops or whatever it is that you've got. Yes, you do need to put in the project planning for that time, but it doesn't mean that you need to penalize yourself for every last one because every time you put a due date in your roadmap, you kind of like take a hit. You have to put in the extra work, that project planning time that your team has to put in to build in the buffer time and put in the estimations and make sure that they hit that time. And that takes a cost on your team that's going to make things take longer. If you can build in additional flexibility and actually say, you know what, this one has a date, everything else can flex around it, then you're going to build in more flexibility. So you might realize that actually, you know what, half of our cards have a date, the other half don't. And actually, we're trying to get to the point that we're going to have fewer dates, fewer reliances on these externally driven client commitments that we started making last year. We're going to start, finishing those off and committing to fewer of these things. Can we get it to 60-40? Can we get it to 70-30? Can we start buying back some more time to do discovery? And we see teams all the time getting themselves closer and closer to the place where they can actually be a discovery-led team as opposed to delivery-led teams. And they use the Now Next Later format to start showing that time being bought back.
I think this is a really good point. I remember my most extreme example was an internal team that told me we need the admin screens, but we know exactly what needs to be in them. In fact, we've made wireframes for you because I know you product guys like wireframes. And then we did run a discovery process anyway, and ta-da, it was quite different in the end. Once we started analyzing what problems they had, right? And so we managed to even run that in Agile and Discovery. This is super interesting. I think we're getting close to we overshot the 10 minutes slightly, ever so slightly by a couple of minutes. And so but this is super helpful. I hope that gives everybody who's listening a lot of ideas on how to do things. I think the pressure on product is always high to give, roadmaps, to give when, what, and everything. And at the same time, you have to solve the problems, which is, the tension. So I hope this was really useful for everyone. Janna, thank you so much for taking the time to run us through this. Yeah. We'll put some links. We'll put some links in the description. Thank you so much for all of this.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'll drop you a link to the course that we built out on how to ditch your timeline roadmap in favor of a Now Next Later.
I know, and we need to make sure, like, how to talk to my CEO about the fact that we're doing all this, right?
Yeah.
That's the super helpful
Yeah,
part.
we've got a presentation template you can use to sell your team, get them on board with this. So hopefully that's helpful for all y'all.
That is gold.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
All right. Well, good
Thank you
chatting
very
with you
much.
guys. Thanks so much for having me
Thanks,
on.
everyone.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye
good
for
one.
now.
Bye.